Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the World Championship Series. We've passed the halfway mark now as we're about to enter, and we will finish in the next couple of hours, Group C. Joining me up here on the desk this time, we have Johan Todd Merlo, a professional Heroes of the Storm competitor, and we have in control, a real businessman.
No. No.
No.
I'm a StarCraft man.
You're a StarCraft man. Thank you for joining us up here. It's always nice to have you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. It's always great to be up here.
And I hope you've been enjoying the event so far, Jeff, here in Canada.
Oh, absolutely. I just am thrilled to be a part of this event. WCS is where it's at. Like, these guys, it's so cool. Every time they ask them on stage, they're like, you know, what are you really excited about? They're like, well, WCS is my life. And they're like, oh, yeah, great. It's cool to be a part of that and see that. And here we are on Elimination Day, and you can really see it. I mean, that was an intense best of 3. Even if it was a 2-0,
yep.
It felt like it took forever.
And it's going to continue to be intense, as a lot of players have a lot to prove this afternoon, and we only have a couple of groups remaining. We're going to jump into Group C. So Group C started off yesterday as a group where, really, before we saw Lilbo play, was a group that we thought anyone could advance from, even though slight favoritism was there for Lilbo. Yesterday, he absolutely wiped the floor with his games, and he joined the elite round of 8 players with Pult and Hydra and Stardust. Today, we have to eliminate 2 of the 3 remaining players, TLO, iAsonu, or iAsonu. What are your thoughts on this group and how it's played out so far, Todd?
Going into it, I thought, like a few people, or maybe many, you know, that Lilbo was going to be the favorites. And I think a lot of people, they probably thought that TLO was going to be very high up there in terms of possibly being able to make it out. Really disappointed against iAsonu, though, in his first match. Got kind of demolished. So it's a little bit worrying, but at the same time, you know, he's had a whole day to, you know, think about his games today. He's got some good rest, and I'm sure he's been thinking a lot about how to play better. And this time, he's going to have to beat iAsonu first, and then iAsonu in order to advance. So, not sure. I think if it's a new day for him, as he kind of said to me this morning, it's a new Dario.
Yeah.
Team Bad Puns comes back. He might be able to do a lot better and possibly advance here. But iAsonu looked very good yesterday against TLO.
Yeah, well, there is the other side of this coin, and that is our last remaining Chinese player, iAsonu, who joins us on the mainstream for the first time.
The advancing means a huge achievement for myself. It gives me more confidence, and it inspires me a lot.
IA trying to end this and take the first series, snipes the third base command center. The Banelings continue to push in, kills the Thor, kills the Marines, and GG's called the 2-0 for IA here at the World Championship Series.
The 3 words describe my personality: rational and hardworking and self-dependent. WCS means a stage where my dream can come true. When I was a kid, I watched esports. I feel so excited. Since then, I had an esports dream. I think it's the passion of StarCraft II. I love it very much, and I think it's a passion drives me to go such a long way from a normal student into a pro gamer and standing in such a big stage in the world.
Good to hear there from iAsonu, and we've looked at every single player, and they all have their own journey to where they've come today. iAsonu, very different to everybody else, comes from a nation that dominated RTS games for years in the past. I mean, you've traveled, you've played in China, you lived in China. They were definitely one of the biggest nations out there with Korea over the last couple of years, but in StarCraft II, they just haven't hit it home properly. And iAsonu has that chance today to carry the weight of an entire nation, and it's a bloody big nation too, Jeff.
One of the biggest, actually. One of the absolute biggest. And he's a bit of a wild card, because to all the points you said, they're fairly insular about their Chinese StarCraft. They have a lot of fierce competition inside of China, but with the WCS system, we're starting to see more of them coming over, your gyms, your IAs. And their play style so far has been really erratic and wild cardy. It's like they're not afraid to go as cheesy as you can get, but they'll also do the macro game, and that makes them pretty hard to judge, and we also don't see them that often. So it's actually really fun. It's like, it's easy for us to look at this and be like, well, we know TLO, we see him play every weekend, don't know IA, so TLO should win. But maybe not. Maybe this is IA, the people's champion of China, who says, well, actually, I got here by beating a lot of good Zergs. Like, you know, there's great Zergs over in China as well.
Yeah, it's when you look at iAsonu, I think it's kind of inspiring for a lot of players to see that opportunities like this are out there, and he's one who's very proud to have this opportunity to come onto the big stage at the biggest tournament right now, to come on in front of the Canadian audience and just play for himself, Todd.
Yeah, it's funny actually how sometimes, you know, there are times where it feels like you see a lot of familiar faces in tournaments, and, you know, breaking into the scene as a newcomer can be difficult, but lately it's really changed the scenery. You know, the players that you see deep in WCS, guys like Marine Lord, who last season didn't even make it to Premier League, is now in the round of 8. Guess what? He worked hard, he made it. iAsonu, why not him as well?
Yeah. TLO, a veteran, we don't really need to talk too much about him right now, but it is time to introduce the 2 players to the stage. Please, Chobra, take it away.
Halfway through the day, and we've got plenty more games coming up. Now entering Group C. Who will make it out alive into the quarterfinals? First up, we're about to find out, as Sean mentioned, the last man remaining, the last man to make it into the round of 16 from China. He's got the pride of a nation on his shoulders, but can he lift it up? It's about to find out as we welcome from Invictus Gaming, iAsonu! And his opponent, a true veteran of the WCS. But to live up to that reputation, he needs to find the strength to get back on his 2 feet today, to march forward onto the round of 8. From Team Liquid, it is TLO! It's a fight for survival now, so players, please shake each other's hands, enter your booths, and get prepared for the match of a lifetime.
The stare down from TLO is real. This is a big match for both of these players. They have to prove themselves on this stage right now that they are worthy to try to fight to continue in the round of 8. We haven't seen anything aspiring from both of these players yet. They're in the low bracket. iAsonu got taken down very easily in this group by Lilbo. Likewise, TLO got shut down hard by iAgers yesterday, Todd.
Yeah, I really don't feel that we can read into this too much. You know, it happens to have an off game, and it really seemed to be what happened, really, from both of them. Talking a little bit to both of them, actually, after they lost, which not always the best thing to do, but I wanted to get a little bit of their impressions.
You're like the Grim Reaper of StarCraft. You came over to all the guys that lost, and you're like, hey, how'd that feel?
Isn't that why you stopped playing? Because you were losing a lot and tired of my questions, right?
Said the other guy at the analyst desk. I don't know.
Just kidding, Jeff. It's okay. Don't make me do a one-on-one with you, please. Okay, no, I was talking a little bit with them, and both of them really recognized that it just wasn't a good series out of them. iAsonu is pretty high Grandmaster on Korea ladder, so he's a pretty good player, but just the style that Lilbo was playing also didn't help. So now he's facing someone he's probably not very familiar with, even though there are some VODs out there. He never really got to play against TLO, I think, before. He's going to have to adjust on the fly.
So TLO, we'll go into talking a little bit about TLO. He is one of only 3 players, excuse me, to have played in every single Premier League since 2013. This is a feat that only 4GG and Pult have with TLO. Very, very, very impressive to be able to do that over a span of 2 years. But what is it that keeps him away from a top 8, a top 4, a final, a win, Jeff?
It's not a lack of work ethic. He's, you know, and he's one of the guys that communicates his work ethic the best. He talks about working on his mental game. You can see him here working with the ball, and that's not just for fun. That's actually to help him iron out his nerves. He's actually had injuries as well. So he is one of the hardest working guys, and that's really not the factor. It's more, I would have to say, the nerves. I mean, he talked about it with Todd yesterday, how he felt like he played like utter crap against iAgers, you know, and that's something that will happen to you. Rotterdam talked about this earlier on a random game in the ladder, sure, but when you're on stage, it happens more frequently for some and more infrequently for others, based upon how they handle the pressure of a big WCS stage.
And this guy, a man that doesn't have the same problems like TLO, he doesn't have an injury, he hasn't had these mental blocks, he doesn't have nerves, he's up here with nothing to lose and everything to gain. And it's something that we've said a lot over the last couple of days, but it really is true for this. When you looked at the round of 16 list of players, did really anybody say, okay, iAsonu, he's going to make it out in this group, he's going to the top 8, he can challenge for the title? No, no one does. But that gives you an edge in a very different way, Todd.
I guess, and much like TLO is kind of unknown to iAsonu, the opposite can be said as well. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they go into this match. Like I've talked about how, you know, both players, they're pretty solid. iAsonu is high on the Grandmaster ladder in Korea, which is the hottest server by far. Sorry, Europe and NA, that's the truth. So both players, I wouldn't be surprised if they just can, you know, kind of try to play standard and from the first game try to see where they're at. They don't really have to do anything special, especially if they both think that they are the better player, which I'm sure is the case.
And as you can see, all the big maps vetoed out of the best of 3 here. We're going to 3 2-player maps in a row here between these players. And one thing that we can look at TLO's side, this matchup, he relied on it to get to the top 8 that he achieved in Season 1. And looking to do the same here again today. Expedition lost here, first map, Jeff.
It's really interesting. I think this is one of the first times, A, we've seen this map in this entire tournament, but B, certainly as a player pick for the first map. So it kind of speaks to IA's wild card status. There's the back rocks, which give kind of a counterattack possibility. Roaches can lower that very quickly. All of a sudden you have counterattacks, and then that makes taking a third base really difficult. TLO, however, has said famously in the past, the more the game descends into chaos, the more comfortable he feels. So I'm excited for this matchup.
Okay, very quick, very quick question here, Todd. When you've lost 0-2, both these lost 0-2, how important is the first map up here for these to get that confidence boost?
Very important. You want to be able to confirm that, you know, the first day was a faux pas, and that's you're going to be playing better in general and during the next day, which is today.
Okay, thank you very much, guys. It's time to go into the game with your commentary team. ZvZ versus ZvZ, TLO versus iAsonu. Who's been eliminated? Who gets another chance?
WCS's Guardian in TLO now faces off for elimination against a man from China, far away from home. Quite the endearing gentleman himself, though, to see who is going to be able to advance on. We can get into this series right away, as they have already begun here for this ZvZ versus ZvZ. So let's plummet in to Expedition Lost to start things off here. I hope you've been enjoying so far, Toronto. It's been fantastic, these games. And now we get more StarCraft action. We're entering the second half of the day. And up to the top right-hand corner, it is our red ZvZ representing Invictus Gaming. It is iAsonu. Down to the bottom left-hand corner, we have our blue ZvZ. Representing Team Liquid in colors, it's TLO!
What a match we have here on Expedition Lost. This is going to be a fantastic ZvZ versus ZvZ. Both players looking to get some pride back in this match. Both of these players are looking to show that they can play it out and they can still make it out of this group. They're not out of this just yet.
Day 2 is proving day. Day 2 is where all your chips are on the table and you've got to go all in. Probably not in strategical terms, but you've still got to win, man. You've still got to win. And the thing is that TLO, he said it himself. If you think back to Season 1, he said, and I quote, "Bring me life, I don't care," when it comes to ZvZ versus ZvZ. So he's pretty confident in this matchup. But the interesting thing to note as well is that iAsonu actually hasn't lost many ZvZ versus ZvZ recently, only to Hydra since back in Season 1, where he lost 0-2. Since then, he's done pretty well for himself. He's beaten Shigwa 3-0. He's beaten Patreus 2-0. And we all saw yesterday how good Patreus can be in ZvZ versus ZvZ, despite losing out to J-Dong, but it's J-Dong, so that, yeah.
It's JVZ, you know, that's nothing to necessarily scoff at. So definitely, IA, his ZvZ is very strong. He's shown some good games in the past. Interestingly enough, just looking at the openings here, we do see that TLO has gone for the slightly safer spawning pool first opening, and IA going for that greedier hatchery first opening, getting the faster gas down. Looks like IA willing to take just a little bit of more risks here, a little bit more unencumbered with his opening.
All right, and well, we shall see if he can kind of weather the storm, because in the end, his start to this group wasn't the best before, actually being pretty much dismantled by his previous opponent over on the B stream by Little Boy, I believe it was. And now going up against TLO here at the very edge. I mean, TLO had a great run in his round of 32. Who can forget that he was able to defeat the defending champion here? But going out in the round of 16 is not where he wants to be. He had a great run in Season 1 where he got a 5th through 8th place, but wants to take those steps to not only achieving that, not only getting that back, getting the opportunities to fight back for that, but also pushing himself further for progression.
Absolutely. TLO wants to push it forward. He wants to get deeper. He wants another one of those top 4 finishes, which it's been such a long time since he's seen. Right now we are seeing the Zerglings coming across the map from IA, trying to get a scout on. TLO going to try and deny this, but the Zerglings go up the ramp. Oh, very nice block from TLO. The Zergling does slip past, but the second queen snatches it off before it can get any of that valuable scouting information.
Yeah, that was quite the denial there from TLO. IA's got to be wondering why he was so avidly defending that with even the drones as the melee. Of course, you always kind of want to do that, put fear and strike it into your heart of your opponent, not having perfect information. TLO, I think he did actually a double extractor trick there, just to get a small bit down further.
A little adaptation is Overlord being a little bit late there. IA, on the other hand, now doing a little bit of scouting denial himself. However, it is clear, seeing that number of queens to TLO, that there isn't really any investment in big, massive early Zerglings or anything like that. When you see that many queens, these are very defensive units, and it clearly is a defensive focus from IA.
Yeah, does that mean that with the little bit of lack of gas that he had, that not having speed out, there we go, the third base goes down. That's what I was about to ask you about. Obviously, you can try and get aggressive, but on a map like this, when it is that far walled off, you may as well just play economically, right?
Spot on against these gasless openings like AA is doing. I mean, he did get gas, but he didn't use it straight away.
Okay.
And because of that, TLO identified that fact. He said, I am safe. You know, rather than trying to bust through this thick wall of evolution chambers and queens, I'm going to take that economic advantage. IA, though, also responding, seeing the third base, now pushing out to take his own third. So this is going to be a very economic opening from both sides. However, we do see, of course, TLO did cancel his link speed as well, and as a result, we're just going to be rushing up to that Roach game. This seems to be almost the popular style right now in the meta. Players just not wanting to play around with that early aggression and really just wanting to rush up to the big macro Roach versus Roach wars, and this map is fantastic for that.
Yeah, you said cancel his Zergling speed. I think he cancelled the Baneling's Nest as well, right? So he needs to keep up with his opponent when it comes to all the gas that he needs to invest into that mid game, because these numbers in the mid game, even just small as 1 or 2 extra roaches, something like clashing in the middle of the map, can make a big difference.
Absolutely, and you see there, even just 4 slow Zerglings trying to get a little bit of damage done from Dario. A really, really nice move. However, look at this cute Overlords dropping creep across the middle of the map and a very fast swell of roaches. It's only 8 minutes 30 in the game, and already IA is looking to put on pressure, trying to catch TLO by surprise before he has a chance to benefit from that fast third base. He's going to come into this third base, he's going to try and kill as many drones as he can, really disrupt TLO's build-up, maybe even get the hatchery if he can.
Yeah, we've seen the creep highways actually coming down, but here we go, iAsonu reviving that pretty much, and really trying to get those roaches over there as quickly as possible. The upgrades are going to line up pretty well for both of them at the same time, defensively and offensively. The TLO knew this was coming, so actually evacuated his drones, well, over to the right-hand side to save them for a little bit, and it looks like he's pushing away everything in the middle of the map.
Looks like a pretty good hold there, not taking too much damage whatsoever. And the game is now in a relatively even spot. We are seeing TLO with that small drone lead, managing to eke out that little economic advantage, and his upgrades are just slightly behind, but IA hasn't started that +2 just yet, so this game's looking very even. And now we start to see where the paths diverge. TLO already going for burrow and tunneling claws. This is so great on this map because of those backdoor rocks. It adds an extra path into your bases, and when you've got to defend so many potential avenues of attack, as we're seeing here on screen, it just becomes so hard with those burrow movement roaches sneaking by, trying to snipe off your drones.
Now, going up against, the IA going up against Burrow as well as Roach Burrow, does iAsonu have to be careful about how quickly he techs up here? Is there a window where TLO could exploit if that tech does come into play here for iAsonu, where he's investing a lot of gas into that and not necessarily having it at his disposal when TLO is able to hit? How does this work?
It looks like it'll definitely be a very Roach-focused game from IA, so he's not kind of teching up too far ahead, so he should have relatively even Roach numbers, but without the tunneling claws himself, he's he's going to be forced into a more defensive stance. He's going to need to try and figure out this is coming ahead of time, get those overseers in position for detection, and be ready for this. Now look at this, TLO moving down the left-hand side of the map. If he can get his roaches up into a forward position, burrow some roaches without IA realizing it, he can suddenly get those burrow move roaches in faster than IA could possibly anticipate it. And look at this, already going for the back rocks, and IA has no vision here. This is absolutely massive. If he doesn't realize this is happening, then this could do massive damage without IA even realizing it's happening.
Yeah, this might be a little bit difficult to deal with. He was slightly behind in TLO's upgrades in terms of the +2 weapons and +1 carapace, but these roaches, they're just going to go for the whole layer. This is ridiculous.
Oh my, before he even has a chance to respond, IA is losing his lair.
Oh,
and
dear.
TLO, he's not choosing to fight, he's just going to the natural. He's running by with these roaches and going to run straight through to the third. Look at those burrows, splitting his roaches up everywhere. This is disastrous for IA.
Big moves being made. IA is going to try and go on the counter-attack here, but I don't think he has enough roaches to really make this work. He's going to go for the roach war and limit some of the production here, but at the same time, TLO does have a Hydra step behind this. He got it in the window where he was keeping his opponent on his side of the map, and these reinforcing roaches should be okay to kind of clean up what's left, but does he have enough to
It was a very nice snipe there on that roach war, and I think maybe this is IA's timing. He's lost that mining on that base. He needs to do something now, and we can see he's trying to force the issue. He's got a beautiful position at that bottom of that ramp, but TLO's coming in from behind with a beautiful surround.
Don't know if he has enough roaches here at all, really, to fend off TLA. Not only that, but also the reinforcement point is definitely in favor of TLO. And even burrowing some of the Hydralisks to be able to save them as the roaches actually maneuver on out of here. TLO takes a massive supply advantage in terms of his economy and in terms of his army.
Really brilliant positioning there from TLO, getting home with those extra roaches just in the nick of time to defend himself. He has a really nice worker lead, up 60 drones to 53 drones, and only just then did we see that hatchery go back down for IA. He was really banking on being able to do the counter aggression with his roach advantage, and he just didn't quite close it out. Now IA's position looks very, very dire. Stuck on 2-base mining, up against a 3-base economy from TLO. TLO's going to be able to eke out a bigger and bigger advantage. And now with Hydralisks joining it, this army is going to be unstoppable in a front-on engagement.
And I mean, how does IA stop TLO from just pushing at max? Surely he has to be on TLO's side of the map. Surely he has to be keeping the fight away from his side, right?
You are spot on there, Calaris. He has to buy time. He can't fight front on. He's got to sneak around. He's got to go into fancy mode. He's got to find a hole, an opening. But TLO identifies where his army is, and he is forcing a front on engagement.
And he was almost going to get the wraparound, trap some of these roaches in there. The Hydras on the right-hand side with the roaches in tandem are going to be able to buffer quite nicely for them and just chase iAsonu on back. He's actually supply blocked a little bit here, his AI, and I'm not sure he's going to win out of this fight. It's big swell in favor of TLO. GG. Game number 1 goes to the German here in Germany versus China. And IA, unfortunately, really had no legs to stand on in that game. TLO played that well.
What a clean game from him, and identifying that hole in the vision of IA and really exploiting it. You can see IA there looking quite serious, and it's that moment we've all, you know, myself, I've had moments like that in games.
Yeah.
You just have this hole in your vision, this very basic thing. He forgot about the back door. He didn't have eyes there, and this roach move in here was just devastating.
I mean, with the amount of time he had in the main base, yeah, you could have gone for drones, but getting the layer, cutting off that economy entirely on that position, and also the potential to tech up even further if you get the opportunity to. I mean, he really had no opportunity to throw down a Hydralisk Den in counter to his opponent's Hydralisk Den, so he was stuck on those roaches for ages, even though he kind of had to be, because he had to rival his opponent's number of roaches. A crazily bad situation, unfortunately, for AI in the mid-game.
It was so even up to that point as well, and he's got to be kicking himself a little bit, but surprisingly calm expression on his face, looks very collected. He's just kind of processing exactly what went wrong in that game and saying, I'm not going to let that happen again. You know, this wasn't something like IA played very poorly. There was just one big misstep from him, which ended up costing him.
TLO came into this group probably feeling quite fresh, feeling good. He came in with the mindset of, look how well I did in the round of 32. In the round of 16, it's mine. At the beginning of it all, he had a bit of a misstep, a bit of a trip up. But now, on his road back here, on day number 2, he definitely has the potential to go further. As we get into game number 2 now, and spawning up to the top left-hand corner, he needs your support. He's far from home. Representing Invictus Gaming, it is iAsonu. down to the bottom right-hand corner, we have our blue Zerg representing Team Liquid. It is TLO.
That serious expression on TLO's face there. He wants this win more than anything else. For him, he does not want to feel the embarrassment of going out last in place in this group. He has always been a WCS mainstay. He's such an experienced player, and to be upset by two lesser experienced players, iAguz and then IA, that is something he does not want to live down. And he's well on his road to redemption with such a clear victory in Game 1, but it's not over just yet. He does still have to take out this next map in order to close out the series.
Find out in just a little bit how that's going to play out. The iAsonu has to buckle down, somehow deal with the trickery that can come out from TLO. It's very difficult unless you ultimately know that there's going to be those burrowed roaches on the way, and you have good vision around the entire map to be able to shut it down. And for now, TLO is going to opt for hatchery first. Likewise, on the other side is our Chinese representative.
Yes, both players playing for that nice economic opening. Not the fastest rush distance on this map, so this is a relatively safe option. It is a little bit vulnerable to some early spawning pools, but we see both players feeling quite confident to drone up, and they are going to be taking that 16 spawning pool. Of course, this map, unlike Expedition Lost, the last game we saw, has a much wider ramp at your natural expansion. So that means that Zergling speed openings with fast gases like we see from both players here, much more common. It's much harder to go for those gasless builds where you wall off with queens and evolution chambers. I'm expecting a much more active early game and hopefully some Zergling Baneling fights.
And TLO from here, considering he needs to keep his WCS hopes alive, considering he did place 5th through 8th in the previous season, and he basically is the guardian of WCS here as all the scenes merged at the start of 2015. It's very important for him to just always be progressing, having been one of the only players to be here and stable throughout every season of WCS. Bringing down this guy shouldn't be too much of an issue for him at the moment.
It shouldn't if you look at his history, but of course, like all players, TLO does have his ups and downs.
Yes.
Definitely, though, from a self-motivation standpoint, he does not feel like he should be dropping any more maps. He is now getting his Zergling speed started, both players mirroring each other's builds. Of course, IA's Zergling speed being just a little bit quicker here.
Yeah, nobody wanting to cut the corners here at the start of this game, that's for sure. When it gets to Zerg versus Zerg, one slip-up in the early game can mean your tournament life. And IA is going to throw down the Baneling nest at the front as well. So even the more aggressive defensive posture, likewise from TLO. So both of these guys really respecting one another at the start of this game because it can be absolutely treacherous.
And the interesting thing is because both players did open up with that hatchery first opening, they both were safe to send the Overlords straight through the base. The Queens were going to be too delayed to stop that, and both players didn't scout. IA only now sending out 4 Zerglings to make sure he can see what's going on the map. Both players really opting for a defensive focused build, trying to power out as many drones as they can. We even see a spine crawler coming out from TLO, and here's the first variation. Rather than going for the spine crawler, we see IA hiding 4 Zerglings on the right-hand side, and he's building 14 Speedlings, morphing those 4 Banelings in secrecy. TLO does not see it coming just yet. He's got 2 Zerglings pushing across the map, but he doesn't have much defense at home, and this pressure is going to be quite strong from IA.
Clever place to morph those Banelings. These 2 Zerglings, though, do manage to get on in. They see a lot of Zerglings floating on out. This is the big tip-off here for him to try and deal with that. He also saw the Zerglings at the front, so now has to buckle down, get his own defenses set up. 4 Banelings are morphing in. He already has that spine crawler in place.
No Banelings are ready, though, and these Banelings are going to maybe sneak past. Beautiful targeting from TLO there. Does manage to shut down those first few Banelings.
And, well, as this continues on, still do have a second spine crawler, though. It has been thwarted at the front here, so just a little bit of a slow and steady pace to this aggression. Morphing in a few more Banelings, though, is AI.
So sneaky, so persistent. Almost always players would give up after their first wave is deflected, but IA continuing to morph those Banelings outside of vision, and he's just constantly producing Zerglings. Notice IA is also taking a second gas behind this. He is going all in with a mass Baneling strategy. He's going to throw endless waves at TLO, but TLO realizes what's up. He's got a second spine crawl at the front. He's morphing a lot of banelings. He just needs to get the detonations just right. He needs to get them, and a beautiful detonation goes off there.
Our Chinese player here is pitting all of his hopes to stay alive in this tournament on these assaults. And the layer behind this is on the way. The Roach Warren is on the way as well. Queen's at the front, going to focus down some of these banelings, some of the Zerglings. The spine crawlers stay alive. IA's attack here has not worked, and drones are being produced behind this. He's retreated back to a position of the layer and drones, but TLO is far ahead from that failing off there by our Chinese representative.
Spot on TLO with that beautiful economy. Actually down a little bit in drones here, surprisingly, but with the faster lair, it opens up so many opportunities. He's going to have such a fast roach speed, and we are anticipating a Mutalisk swap here from IA. He's adding gases. He's got a lot of speedlings on the map, so IA is saying, oh, how can I recover from here? If I can get some mutas, I can get some map control. Maybe I can rain down some harassment from above, shut down any roach timings, and he is going to do that, but it's so delayed, and it's going to be so hard for him to defend this attempted third base against TLO's Zergling aggression.
The fact that he slipped in a few drones after all that had gone on and got himself a small lead is nice, but you're right, the third base is really the telling factor at the moment. The Baneling's morphing in for the assault. A few Lings actually going to separate themselves off. One Queen is not enough to be able to block that ramp, and he will actually separate off some of the Zerglings to not only block the ramp, but try and do damage in the main base as well. So Baneling's morph on in here, try and clean all of this up. Did he get any drones? He got two himself. Got the Queen in the main base, which will limit some of the production here from IA.
And he's still distracting him at the front while morphing two Banelings in the mineral line, and I'm not sure IA has realized just yet. In the main base, those Banelings are still morphing for TLO. They're about to finish. The drones are stuck on them, and these Banelings taking out another 3 drones. Meanwhile, so much mining time lost in the midst of this. TLO calmly droning at home, adding his third base, adding roaches, while IA has been slowed down so much by this aggression.
Yeah, Burrow on the way for TLO. He's really getting his upgrades on the way very quickly, and because he had his layer so quick, he's going to have clear reconstitution far earlier than IA here. And when you have Roach versus Roach, some with clear reconstitution and the others not, that can oftentimes be a disaster pick.
That Roach speed is so huge. It's so good for maneuvering around the map. And when you already have the faster third base being saturated, a 53 drone lead against 39 drones, TLO in the lead there, and he's already, once again, rushing that burrow and tunneling claws. This seems to be TLO's strategy here. His style is, rather than focusing on those upgrades, I'm just going to get the +1, and I'm going to get such a fast tunneling claws that I'm going to be in such a good position to push you around the map.
IA invested quite a bit in that previous attack. It didn't work. The counter attack was okay for TLO, and now still IA has to find a solution to the problem that TLO has set before him. What it's going to be, though, I mean, how do you play this out as IA here, Pig?
IA has just got to stay relatively low on drones so that he can withstand any sort of roach aggression. It's such a hard spot because you say, if you're behind, surely you want to get a bit more economy to catch up. But in the Zerg versus Zerg matchup, when you're looking at roaches versus roaches, it's all about who can get the better fight. And when you've got a sizable roach lead, you're going to be so much more cost efficient in those engagements. So IA needs to really stop droning at this point and just focus on mass roach production and defend. He needs to set up those defensive spreads, defend with the faster reinforcement points, hold on to the choke points, and if he can hang on long enough and get close to max supply, then he will be able to contest against TLO. But TLO is already pushing in. He doesn't want to give him time.
And he's going to try and force himself up against this. There is Spine Crawl as well as Queens in tandem here to help out IA, but I don't know if it's actually going to be enough. I mean, these roaches burrowing quite well here for TLO, just burrowing the weakened ones, getting them back up there, healing in the middle of this fight. And because of that, the trade has been fantastic here from TLO. Despite the reinforcement point being there for IA, TLO will back off, heal on up, and with extra reinforcements can probably go again, and IA has got to be scared at this point.
I think I finally understand why he's called Dr. Dario Caleres, healing up his roaches like a boss there and coming back in for a second wave.
And that's a lot of roaches in favor of him at the moment. 37 on the field against 17. Of course, they're not all here with this army at the moment, but as long as he's able to burrow a few once again, burrow them and make sure they're going to heal up, the Spine Crawler is going to fall. IA has very little left available to him. The WCS Guardian is looking to keep himself alive here in Toronto as he pushes up into the natural base, kills off a Queen, kills off roaches, GG, and Dario with the chirpy little smile is able to keep alive here in Group C.
what a confidence booster that has to be for TLO, cleaning that game up in commanding fashion, stepping out of that booth, looking satisfied, breathing a sigh of relief. He knows he's done himself proud in that game.
A masterful control of the Zerg versus Zerg matchup there as TLO is able to read the situations how he does, and we shall now hear from him. Keeping himself alive in Group C, it is TLO.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. A big round of applause for TLO for making that next step into the decider match. Now, TLO, yesterday was a bit of a rough patch for you, but it looks like you got back up. You look like you're happy. I mean, how did that process go through, and how do you feel right now?
Well, I mean, I always say yesterday's Dario is dead. You know, it's new Dario today, and I'm just going to let the past behind me and play as good as I can today.
Awesome to hear. I mean, the fans love hearing that. We're seeing tons of TL signs here, rather, and of course, they are TL fans. Now, for you as TLO going up next, we're not going to keep it too long because there's that decider match coming up, but it's a bit of a rematch. I mean, it's a revenge match for you. You said you wanted to put the past behind you, but knowing that you've played against this guy yesterday, does that affect you at all?
Yeah, it's good for me, actually, I think. I like not being the favorite because I lost yesterday. I don't have anything to lose anymore, so I'll play better.
Awesome to hear. Well, TLO going in with nothing to lose. We're about to find out if he can move on to the round of 8 in that decider match of this group.
And that decider match of the group will be happening very, very, very shortly. TLO a step closer towards getting another top 8 within the World Championship Series, within the Premier League. But he's not there yet. I'm joined on the desk by Todd and, of course, by In Control. A convincing performance by the German in his favorite matchup and in his best matchup, Jeff.
You know, not to be anticlimactic, but I felt like that was what was going to happen. TLO is known for his ZvZ in Europe, where there's a lot of strong Zergs, a lot of great ZvZs, Targa, Snoots, to name a few, and TLO stands out there. So, not knowing much about IA, I felt like this was the fairly predictable result, and it's nice because it does shape up that rematch. I was waiting for Dario to break the code. He's such a nice guy. He's like, hey, and you know, Chobra, I'm an old host myself. I know those questions. You're like, hey, guy talked a little bit of smack yesterday. Did you want to say anything? And Dario's like, nah, today's a new day. You know, it's like, oh, okay, well. Could have been great.
Sad day for iAsonu, though. He, really wanted to come to Canada. He did play in front of this crowd. He did play on the big stage, but was not good enough to, unfortunately, take a map from anybody in the round of 16. We'll have to try and climb back up ready for Season 3, very similar to every other player, exactly the same to every other player.
He's young. He's 22. He came here. He was so humble in his interview, so great. Got an idea of what he needs to do, and hopefully he'll go home and work really hard with that other talented Chinese players and come back a new man.
All right, well, let's take a closer look at Group C, as this is where we currently are on the second day of the World Championship Series. We are clearing up and cleaning up the round of 16 as we get closer and closer to the quarterfinals. TLO has defeated the Chinese player iAsonu, and next up, he will go up against, in a rematch, ZvZ, the player yesterday, Todd, that 2-0'd him, that made him look like an average, a mediocre Zerg player, and it really was like that. It's a new chance, as TLO said, it's the new day.
That's good. That was good.
That wasn't quite as good as you.
Yeah.
It started with it's a new day, and then he added Rio, so it's a new Dario. But yeah, against iAsonu today, he's playing better. You can already see it, in his ZvZ that he just played. The thing is, iAsonu seems really confident. The thing that he said yesterday in the interview is that, I think it was, if it goes into the late game and I can make it about mechanics, it's going to be easy. So definitely very, very confident, which I think might fire up a little bit TLO.
I mean, do you think fundamentally, I mean, we'll talk again about this matchup a lot when we come back off the break, but do you think fundamentally, if we go into the late game, that ZvZ is technically a better player than TLO?
I can definitely see where he's coming from with that. His play style is just rock steady, solid macro, and he's going to outplay you that way. So that's definitely his comfort zone. And Dario has said in the past, I think I already said this, but he loves chaotic games. He loves games that are all over the place. So I definitely stand by that statement. But that's not to be said that TLO doesn't have really good mechanics himself. There will be like a couple of gases with 2 drones on it and like 5 Zerglings in the corner that everyone forgot about, including Dario. But outside of those kind of things, he's executing on a pretty high level as well.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen. It's time to go to a quick break, but when we return, Group C will be decided. We will either have an Australian in the top 8, or TLO will be back-to-back round of 8 finishes.